Hello and welcome to today's Friday Facebook Live. Today we are talking.
I think Rachel paused. I can't hear Rachel. I can hear her. Just as she was saying mine was going to pause. She'll be back any minute, no doubt.
Yeah, absolutely.
So hopefully we should have some good tips for you. I was reading an article in Forbes magazine actually the other day, and it was saying that McDonald's are planning to pull out their marketing war chest and throw $200 million into marketing over the next few months to try and get themselves out of the coronavirus crisis. Now, obviously, most small to medium businesses haven't got £200 million in a war chest. But, you know, if we're all going to survive and pull through this, marketing is going to have to be one of the key tools in our arsenal. So we will talk a little bit more about this over the next hour. So before we start, though, I'm going to ask my two guests to introduce themselves. So first of all, Morgan, who are you?
I'm Morgan Rothwell from D&M Creative. We're a marketing and web design agency based in Burnley. We've been going for 18 years now. And our focus as an agency is to help our clients grow their business. It's as simple as that, whether it be through web, through good marketing, or ways and means which we've learned over the last 18 years to do some really good business development. Brilliant.
Thank you very much. And Simon Dalley, who are you?
Well, I'm Simon Dalley, funnily enough. Simon Dalley from GrowTraffic. I'm my son's GrowTraffic's founder. I set kind of the enterprise afloat about 10 years ago, and now I'm one of the 3 directors, part of the team that leads this show. I've got a background in marketing. I've been working in marketing for 20 years. I've been head of marketing of various kind of tech businesses over time. GrowTraffic was my side hustle, and Rachel got involved in the business and really helped it grow and thrive and become more of what it is now. So yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. So one of the things that Simon Dalley always does, because I give the guests a list of questions before we start, he always answers the question after the one that I've asked. So my next question is, what's your marketing experience? Or well, what's your journey and how have you got here? So Morgan, I'll come to you again first. What's your marketing journey been like?
Yeah, well, my career's kind of it's been a bit mixed, really. Certainly the first few years of it. I left school at 16. I was actually trained as an aircraft mechanic, so I used to work in the Air Force on Tornadoes. I did that. Unfortunately, I had quite a serious accident and I was immobile for a couple of years. So I went into education then. And whilst I was going through my degree, I started a car valeting business. And I didn't realise at the time, but what I did effectively was really good marketing. So we did really well with that. And then after I finished my degree, I had a friend that was starting a fashion business, and he said, would I be interested in getting involved in marketing? So I worked with, in the fashion business, working with different agencies from in London, Edinburgh and Liverpool. And then after that, I decided that I wanted to do a high qualification. So I went to Manchester University, did my master's. And then after I'd finished that, I started working in marketing, but I always wanted to run my own business. So I bumped into my current business partner, Damien Greenwood, and we formed what was Brainstorm Ideas and what is now D&M Creative back in January 2002. And over that time, I've worked probably with about 300 companies working at both at a functional level, so doing some of the implementation and marketing, but more recently, certainly the last 5 years or so, a much more strategic level. I'm on a number of boards as well, advising on the marketing and how to, how businesses can grow through marketing. I've also been involved in recruitment, so we've got one client where I help recruit a marketing team. So yeah, quite a broad level of experience. I've got all the badges as well, so the Masters and the Chartered Institute of Marketing qualifications. But whilst they are badges and great badges to have, the actual practical experience of working with 300 different businesses in really diverse situations, from a networking organisation called B&I. We were their global brand managers for 10 years, so I used to work with them in California, back to sort of local companies where we've done rebrands and various other work. So So yeah, quite broad, but essentially marketing is all about communication for me. It's all about making sure that you're delivering the right message to the right people, and it doesn't really matter what industry it is. So hopefully that's answered the question. Sorry, I waffled on.
No, absolutely. It's really interesting actually because Dalley was talking with two other SEOs that he knows a lot on last week's Friday Facebook Live, and he was telling the story then about how he ended up doing, starting an SEO business because he was doing SEO for a website that he had, and it's funny, isn't it? That's how people you find that I don't know many people who set off saying I want to do marketing, and from the age of 16 they have set off on that path. But a lot of people I know who are in it because they found it, they stumbled across it, and they found an interest in it. So yeah, it's
do you know what, Rachel? I think you're right in one way, but there's an age thing about this. No offense, Morgan. So we're all roughly the same age, I think. So I noticed that people that are around our age tended to stumble, and older, tended to kind of fall into marketing. Yeah. But the younger guys who are like 5, 10 years younger than us, they come out of the box with marketing degrees, marketing qualifications.
Yeah, very true. Agree with that. Yeah.
They've been on a career path right from university. Yeah, I think part of what happened was the old marketers in like the 90s just struggled to transition. A lot of them struggled to transition into the kind of digital age, and a lot of them left the marketing sector all at the same time, and it just left a big kind of gap for a lot of people to come in. So that's kind of what happened to me.
Do you think? I will come back to your story, but do you think also that marketing became so much more visible when social media came around? Do you think people suddenly kind of realized that is what marketing was? And I think a lot of young people kind of see social media as a path into marketing, don't they? Do you think that has anything to do with it?
I think it was happening before that. So I think if you go back to when we went, or when I went to university, kind of turn of the millennium, there was still that ethos of you just need to get a degree. If you get a degree, you can do anything with your career. You can go in any different direction. However, by the time I was finishing my degree, the message for younger people had changed. It was more about choose your career, choose the degree that's going to get you into that career. Because I remember coming out and people were asking for really specific degrees when you went to go into a kind of industry. So I think part of it was changing. Social media, if you think about it, only really came out in 2000. I mean, Facebook came out in 2004, became a big thing in probably 2007. And probably by that time, people were getting marketing degrees, at a higher kind of volume. And also it took a long time, for people to work out how to use social media for marketing. So it was only like 2009, 2010 that people started talking about Twitter for business and using Twitter for business. And if I remember rightly, it was about 2010, 2011 when Facebook created Facebook pages for businesses to start promoting themselves on Facebook. Does that sound right to you, Morgan?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I think LinkedIn had a lot to do with the move towards business for Facebook as well, because Facebook was very much a social animal until certainly LinkedIn got into that space where I used to describe LinkedIn as a Facebook for business, because Facebook really didn't have a strong business sort of element to it then. But of course, LinkedIn was invented for recruitment, and then it developed into a more business social sort of channel. But I absolutely agree what you say about degrees and how people used to be less focused on. It was more about do a degree that you enjoy doing, and then you can get the job that you want. As an example, our tech director Gary, he actually did a degree in glassblowing, and now he's a programmer and a developer.
Does he still keep his hand in?
Sorry.
Does he still keep his hand?
Absolutely, yeah, blowing glass, yeah. So it's,
you know what?
No,
I'd argue even later, because I mean we are still now having conversations with businesses, and especially younger businesses that are being run and set up by younger people. Obviously, they get social media, they understand that's where they need to be, they know that in the bones. But I think for people who are of the 40s, 50s, especially the people who have been in business for kind of 20 to 30 years, it's still a hard sell to get them to understand why their business needs to be visible on social media. And we will come back to obviously social media a bit later on in the chat. But I would actually, go against completely my earlier point that I made. But I think it is still something that we're having to sell into business, isn't it? There's the potential of social media to market.
Yeah, I had a conversation actually with a company last week, and they work in the engineering sector. Very much B2B, not a B2C company at all. And I was speaking about Facebook and the importance of it, not just because of the social signals that I believe, is makes the SEO important, but actually trying to explain the fact that directors of other companies that may purchase their services are on Facebook, and Facebook has got a slightly older demographic. So certainly for the 45 plus directors that are in organizations that these companies want to engage with, if they can engage with them on a social level, when actually they're sat at home on a Saturday and subliminally they're seeing marketing messages and they're seeing really good posts from these companies that could be, they could be the future clients, that's actually a really good thing. But I do actually still now get a lot of resistance to Facebook, even though there's absolutely no doubt about it. The evidence and the research shows that it's important for SEO, it's important for brand profile and brand building. But also the other thing that I think is really important that businesses seem to have kind of lost is the personality. There's so many companies that I've come across that don't have a personality, and you don't see the people. You don't see the great work that they're doing. You don't see the corporate social responsibility work. We have a client in the playground sector, so they put playgrounds into schools, and with them we try and put about the different things that the people are doing in the organisation, and we put the new playgrounds on, obviously. But having a picture of a new playground is very different from having a playground where it's got kids running around it, enjoying it, using it. And you can, for me, you can add real personality to social media. And social media encompassing LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Pinterest, Instagram. That for me is one of the key aspects to differentiate your brand.
Absolutely.
I think you can understand really why quite often though, even those people that have tried it and done it might be quite hesitant about investing money into it, because you're right. A lot of those things that we were talking about are quite intangible, really. So it is a case of just having a presence, just on the off chance that somebody's going to check your profile, make sure you're active, or they might be there at a certain time, and they might be the relevant person. Because let's be honest, most B2B brands, lots of B2C brands have horrible engagement levels on social media. They put content out, but they don't see massive returns. And I think this might speak in some ways to the way that marketing's gone over the last 20, 25 years, really. Because I remember when I started in marketing, we talked about ROI, and we were able, we did lots of kind of mail shots and DMs and stuff like that, real kind of database marketing. And we knew what percentage, and we also knew how
I think I've lost the sound there. Have you lost the sound as well, Rachel?
No, I can hear him still. Have you lost yours?
Do you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Oh, I'm just going to carry on talking. I remember that the percentage, we used to know the percentage of conversions we get from different campaigns and things like that. And we were seeing it go down over time. But there was because historically people have been less able to measure marketing or not measure marketing as effectively as we can now. They've been much more prepared to kind of take a punt on things, just give it a go and see what works and what doesn't. Just have a kind of gut feel for marketing. And there's certain things that it's quite intangible unless you go into the process of, kind of doing lots of research about how your customers engaging with your marketing and what they understand about your marketing and all the rest of it. Because you end up just, I can see two of you now, Morgan. That's interesting.
That is worrying. That is worrying.
But I think, so I do wonder whether a focus on ROI sometimes in marketing reduces makes us a bit more risk averse and reduces the creativity and the art to it. And also, I mean, something quite interesting. I was looking at a client's PPC account, and we were running the attribution as just last click attribution, and they had quite a big brand spend. But when we changed the attribution model, we found that lots of people were clicking on an ad to start off with, and then coming back through a brand ad. So what we were seeing originally, the original data was misleading, and it was only by exploring that further that you started to see that that brand campaign was actually having a really positive impact on the overall account. So I think sometimes we can look at things like Facebook and say, well, we're not getting loads, we're not getting likes, we're not getting shares, but what we don't know is exactly who is looking at it and what they are learning from that, and what impact that has on their buying decisions ongoing. I've talked loads there, sorry.
Yeah, and you're getting a little bit into the realms of technical, which is all right, but I don't want us to go too far down that path. I think the key thing there is that it is that point about ROI, isn't it? Because once upon a time, like you said, you would spend £1,000 on a leaflet campaign, for example, and you would say, right, how many orders have we got out of that? And you could work out a clear ROI for your marketing activities. Whereas now, because it's this kind of digital marketing, social media marketing, it is much more subtle, and there's much less correlation between what you've spent and what you've got out of it, because it's so much harder to measure that brand recognition that people are now getting because they are engaging with a brand on social media. And yet, it is actually priceless when you look at the brands that are doing social media really, really well. And I don't want us to just focus on social media, so we will pull it back again in a bit. But when you look at those brands that are doing well on social media, it is incalculable what they're getting out of it. Yeah, because it is that level of recognition, isn't it? Do you find that with your campaigns, Morgan? Because you do some social media marketing, don't you?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we do some limited sort of campaigns as part of an overall package for clients. But I think one of the really important aspects that ties in with this, and just going back to that idea of measurement, is that the sales cycle for many businesses can be a number of years. We worked with a client a couple of years ago, and they had a 7-year sales cycle. So they produced equipment for parts for the motor industry. So when they won a contract, it was a 7-year contract, and it wouldn't get renewed, and they had no capacity to win other contracts until that one was ending. So for them, it really wasn't about selling. And I think, again, many people have gone to social media and it's sell, buy from us. And really, those sort of messages, people aren't engaging with them unless it's a unique, fast-moving consumer good where you make a quick decision and you'll buy it for $9.99 and you'll end up with an orange wibbly wobbly thing that you've no idea what it does when it arrives. Which lots of people buy. Or if you buy from Wish, I don't know if you've seen any of the Wish products, but
I love searching on Wish.
we have a feature on GrowTraffic. We have What the Fuck Wish, which is just the most random things Wish have tried to sell us this week. But you're absolutely right. This is something that I tell our clients over and over again. And in fact, Liz Hall is watching. Hello, Liz. She and I were having this very conversation on Wednesday. The internet, and having a website and stuff. You've removed a level of human interaction that you would want to have had when you were engaging with the business. You would have walked into the shop, you would have gone down the high street, you would have asked your friend, however it worked. Now you are going online to search for something, and because you've got that level of detachment from your end customer, you've got to find some other way of making that connection with them. And that means having photos, as you said before, having photos on your website of your team, of your company, creating some brand personality through your social media account. People want to know now, you know, if they want to buy the cheapest product, they will go to Amazon or eBay and they will buy the cheapest product. And if it doesn't turn up from China, it doesn't matter because it's only costing $2.99. Whereas if they want a slightly better quality of service or product, they want to know, you know, who are these people? Do they look trustworthy? Am I going to be able to trust them with my money? If something goes wrong, can I pick the phone up and can I talk to them? And that's what all of that creates, is that ability of that end customer to feel like they know you as a business. And again, that's not a, you know, money in, money out ROI thing, or even a sales, you know, money in, sales out kind of thing. It's it's something much less measurable, much less tangible, isn't it? I am aware that we are kind of, we've gone in at the deep end here and we've missed out a couple of steps. So I'm gonna pull it back a little bit. One of the things that I wanted to discuss is, you know, what are the problems that businesses are facing at the moment? Obviously, you know, our answer is going to be marketing is going to get you out of it because we're all marketers. But you know, we've got first of all, we've got the coronavirus crisis. Secondly, we've got potentially another recession coming over the hill. I mean, we're all in kind of East Lancashire at the moment, and we've got a second almost lockdown on our hands here. Morgan, in terms of your customers, the conversations you're having with your businesses and your own business, you know, what are the issues that businesses are facing right now, do you think?
So right at the start of the crisis, it was at the end of the first month, I noticed that my mailbox was not really very full of marketing emails. And I actually did an analysis between April and February, and I got 72% less marketing emails than I had done previously. So one of the things that I was speaking to my clients about, and there was a window, and the window lasted for about 4 or 5 weeks, that actually email marketing suddenly became, we were suddenly getting much higher open rates, much higher return on investment. So we were doing, quite a number of our clients were actually doing marketing campaigns. But the challenge that a lot of them had, and the reason why the numbers dropped off, is because when the furlough system came in, one of the first groups of people to be furloughed were the marketing people, because either there was no market to market to, or companies felt that it was a cost that they needed to reduce. So I think one of the key challenges that we're seeing for clients is the fact that they've had marketing teams that are furloughed. Unfortunately now, as those teams are coming back from what I'm speaking, people that I'm speaking to, from clients, a number of them are being made redundant. And we're seeing that now, and we're going to see that quite significantly, I think, in the next few weeks, because, of course, with the way the furlough system works, companies are still paying holidays, national insurance now, pensions, and they're accruing fairly significant debts. So that process, I think, over the next few weeks is going to result in quite a lot of redundancies, which will bring skill gaps. And there's no doubt there's going to be skill gaps within companies, skill gaps to do with website development. From our point of view, website development, website updating, access to databases, even simple things like doing MailChimps and managing your social media. People that used to liaise perhaps with yourselves about the SEO, you know, they go through the reports and they make the changes. We're seeing big reductions in the amount of marketing staff and marketing teams, which is really sad for the industry, because you know, I know some really creative, really good marketers that are facing quite tough times, really. But from an agency perspective, how we're aligning ourselves is we're looking at how we can support our clients and other companies through this period where they perhaps have got smaller marketing teams, where they have got skill gaps. I believe it'll come back, and I believe it'll come back strong, because in 2008 what we saw was something really similar. So we saw a very similar sort of effect in that marketing teams were depleted, marketing spend dropped. But the clients that we work with who actually invested in the marketing grew significantly that period, sort of 2009 to 2012. And what I'm kind of hoping is, and what we are seeing with our clients is that they are actually investing in the marketing. So although initially for us it was fairly, it's fairly significant. We had companies in the hospitality sector, hotels, manufacturing, literally those retained clients, so those monthly clients that I work with, either halved or cut totally the budgets in some cases. Some of them didn't. Some of them are actually up in the budget. Some of them are investing more, and they're doing really well from it. But generally, I think that, the key challenges that I'm seeing now is the fact we've got skill gaps. So as people are coming back from furlough, they've got outdated websites, they've got marketing that isn't ready to go, because really, now's the time where companies should be really focusing on marketing. And I think there are some traditional routes that people have forgotten as well that we should really go back to. Because what I've kind of, sorry, I'm
no,
what I found is that people are actually having a lot more conversations now. Instead of just emailing people, I'm speaking to people. Instead of texting people, I'm Zooming them. And I think people are appreciating the interaction. We've got a client who we work with for over 10 years now. They grew from about a £2 million business to a £10 million turnover. With them, I've helped recruit the marketing teams, and we analysed their conversion rate about 3 years ago, and the conversion rate went from 15% to 9%. Now, some people say that's a 6% drop, but actually it's not. It's over a 30% drop in conversion rate. And what was actually happening was we were generating more leads. But because we were generating more leads, the sales team, instead of thinking, right, I'm going to speak to that person, I'll build a relationship, they were just emailing quotes. So they'd email the first point of contact back, here's your quote, and then another email, do you want to buy it or not? It's quite crude, but that's basically what they're doing. So we stopped that, and we actually introduced something like IBM did the No Email Friday, and it worked really well for them a few years ago. So we did the similar thing. And we set people call targets, so they had to make a certain number of calls a day. The conversion rate went from 9% to 17%, so it went from better than it was before. And coming back to the point that I'm kind of making, I think any company now that's really wanting to grow and develop the marketing, the first thing I'd be doing, I'd be speaking to their existing customers, building those relationships again, making sure that they're happy, making sure that they're in a good position, making sure that they're well serviced. And also the new customers that are coming in, the new prospects, just having a different way of approaching it, because too many companies have become reliant on email. They've become reliant on WhatsApp groups and technology. And whilst I advocate technology because it brings great efficiencies in marketing, I also think that we need to just get back to that personal contact, because for me, that's what allows you to convey that personality, build a relationship, and, strengthen the business.
It's absolutely true, and it's one of those key things that I think businesses forget, and they forget it quite easily. And we were saying this to our clients, when lockdown hit, the worst thing you can do at this time is go completely silent. Even those businesses that weren't able to trade or weren't able to stay open in some way, we were saying, find something that you can do, even if it's just a YouTube video, a Facebook Live. Find some way of keeping a connection going and keeping that conversation going with your customer base, because if you stop talking to them, they will forget you and they will be gone, and in 4 months time you're not going to have a business to come back to. And it's really interesting now that you see, as we're slowly coming out of lockdown, you can see that the businesses that have done that and that have had those conversations and kept the channels open, they are the ones that have got something to come back to. But it's interesting what you said there, Morgan, as well, about not forgetting those traditional means of marketing as well. And Dalley, you've been in doing marketing for a while, haven't you? And I know somebody who's just started sending out letters. They didn't want to do an email marketing campaign. They wanted to send out leaflets. And I said, are you sending them to offices or home addresses? They said offices. I said, well, why don't you do it as a welcome back to the office card, and do you need anything? This is what we can can do, and do it in that way. You know, it's a great opportunity. So Dalley, I know you've been sat there silent for a while, so I'm coming to you next. What have you seen examples of this where it's worked? You know, what would you be saying to businesses now in terms of the marketing mix that they need to include in terms of coming out of this crisis?
So I was going to say, first of all, and I heard what you said about 2008 and the changes in terms of reduction in marketing teams, but also those businesses that invested in marketing at that time grew out there, and absolutely agree. I started freelancing in 2008, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to kind of concentrate on from a freelance perspective. And it was 2009 that I kind of came up with GrowTraffic and decided SEO was going to be the focus. But I also noticed that, and I think we'll see this again now, that up until that point there was probably quite a lot of bloat in many of those marketing departments, in many of those marketing teams, and they didn't necessarily know what was working, what wasn't working, and probably controversially for a marketer, I think you can't always kind of spend your way out of a problem with marketing. Quite often it helps to kind of really cut back and go, right, you know, put all the crap out of it and go right back to the beginning and say what is working, what is not working, concentrate on what's working, and build up. In terms of some of the kind of offline, more traditional stuff that I've seen working, I know a story that I liked. Met a guy and he wanted to target IT directors, and he didn't want a lot of customers. He wanted like a handful of customers. So what he did was he went on eBay and he bought a load of Amigas, Ataris, all came with games. He boxed them up into a nice package, went to the offices of 20, I think he did about 15 or 20 kind of targets, and he went to the offices with this box and said, could I speak to your IT director? I've got a delivery for them. Gave him that. He said most of them he managed to hand it over in person to them and introduce himself. Yeah. And for something like I don't know, probably cost him something like $2,000 altogether with all those things. And I think he got something like 5 clients out of it. And, you know, little things like that. We are so focused on digital because it's really trackable, it's really traceable. We can see the ROI straight away. But there are other things that can be done. They're a bit more creative. And the key thing is as well, if you're the only person doing it, then you get that kind of cut through, don't you?
You know, I used to work at a garage, a mechanics garage in Wigan, which was like a really rough place. And obviously there were the companies that rent out courtesy cars and stuff were always vying for your custom. But there was one guy who used to come around every Friday lunchtime and bring us all a donut. And I can't remember now which hire company he worked for. But we always got our hire cars from him just because he was the guy who brought us donuts on a Friday. And it is. You completely forget sometimes in the world of digital that it's those little human touches that make the difference. It's all about connections, isn't it? Are you finding that, Morgan?
Absolutely, totally agree. Yeah, there's a really good book actually that I'd advise people to get. It's a dead easy read. It's called Guerrilla Marketing. And some of those techniques that you've just mentioned in there work perfectly, you know. And if I was, I've got a friend actually I was speaking to about this because he was looking at doing a direct mail campaign, got 1,000 database. I said, choose 20 people off that database, do a handwritten letter, put a stamp on it, and see what happens. And he got 7 responses, and they were all MDs of big companies. So just a little bit of thought. It's definitely not about the amount you spend. It's about how you spend it. If you've got a shop and you're selling, we have a business actually that sells football goals. So we rely quite heavily on PPC, on Google Shopping. But there's a lot of things that you can do to support those activities as well. For example, with a client that sells truck parts, so DAF truck parts, and they've seen, you know, they've been pretty resilient through the through the crisis, really. We have 2 meetings a week instead of one a month. And the activities that they've been doing really have been very people-based. So it's not cost anymore, but it's been about speaking to the customers more, having a look at the customers that have fallen off, the new customers that are coming in board, give them a cuddle. Well, a virtual cuddle, socially distant, breaking social distance. Yeah, doing things that create that personal connection, because you can't do it through an email. And people, the amount of times I've had emails of people where I thought, well, they're an absolute arse sending me that email, when actually they're not. It's just their style. They're just either very matter of fact, or they've only got 2 minutes to send it you. And you can do so much more.
Yeah, no, it is.
Like I think as marketers as well, we're often targeted on the kind of bottom end of the kind of acquisition end of the spectrum. Yeah, it's all sales related, isn't it? Let's be honest. That's what we get, and very often we kind of forget about the advocacy stage and the loyalty phase of how do we keep people? How do we get them to communicate with everyone that they know? Because word of mouth is such an important part of kind of spreading the word about a business and a product and a service. And I think that's traditionally how products have got out there. Really, yes, marketing, yes, advertising is part of that, but word of mouth is always so strong. And I think often we forget about it because of how we report on ROI. Quite often we target on the one bit.
If you think how Marks and Spencer started with, a tray of goods going door to door, knocking on a door, and it's turned into what it's turned into. That was personal selling. It started off as personal selling.
Well, the other thing as well, if you think back to when we were kids in the 80s and the early 90s,
life was black and white then.
Well, yeah, no, a little boy asked me that. Was everything black and white when you were a child? But you never saw Marks and Spencer advertise on telly back then. They only started it in the mid-90s, didn't they? Because they didn't need to, because they had such a high reputation. They were at the pinnacle of the British high street, weren't they? And like John Lewis as well was a similar brand. And they never needed to do that level of advertising because they had that word of mouth and that reputation already. And that's obviously where every brand wants to get to, isn't it? Time is marching on, so I want to move on to the kind of the next phase bit, which is, if we were thinking about most sort of small to medium businesses now, and I want to look at this from two perspectives. I want to look at it from the perspective of your average small to medium business owner. So either they're on their own or they've got a small team around them, or maybe a marketing manager trying to have a conversation with their employee, the MD of a company. What would you be advising businesses that to do at this point when, money's obviously tight, as we've already mentioned, we've got redundancies, there's probably a recession coming over the hill, yet marketing is crucial. What would you be telling them to throw into the mix? Morgan, I'm going to come to you first this time.
Yeah, I think the first thing to do is make sure that, I've said it's not all about spending money, but I think it's important that the marketing, they do actually have a marketing budget firstly, because, I am seeing in certain companies where marketing budgets are literally, well, we'll spend it if we need to, whereas before they'd have a pot of money that they could go and they could use. So I think firstly it's about securing the marketing budget, but being flexible. I mean, we have companies at the moment. We've got one company that we're working with who they're on a reduced marketing spend, but we're spending it in the areas which we know have a fairly direct result on the bottom line on sales. So we're spending it on PPC. They're doing fairly extensive SEO, the brand awareness type of things, and actually the corporate social responsibility side of it. It actually is taking a slight back seat at the moment, and it to a certain extent, I do think that you've got to cut your cloth accordingly. There's no doubt about it. But I think it's really crucial that you highlight the activities that are going to give the highest return on investment, and you can track that through data. It is possible. And with a limited spend, it's important it's spent in the right places. But linked to that, I think it's also important that the successes that you had through doing that, make sure that the marketing funds are then increased to come back to make sure you can propagate that, make it grow, make it develop, rather than, kind of fixed spending. So whether it be on a lower budget at the moment that some people are doing, get laser guided on the things that are going to give you the best return. And I think as a business owner, I'd be really focusing on that the external comms and also the internal comms as well for staff, because again, one thing that we're seeing, there's a lot of anxiety in organisations. There's anxiety returning from lockdown, and there's mental health challenges, but there's also anxiety about the future of the business. And if you've got customer-facing people that have got anxieties about whether or not they're going to be in that role in the next week or the next month, that's not going to be the best way to grow and develop and help sales sort of grow. So I think the internal communications really are really important at the moment, and making sure that HR function's really working well.
That's an absolutely crucial point. We did talk about this in an earlier Facebook Live, but I mean, obviously there's the anxiety aspect of it with redundancies within teams and all the rest of it. But there's the really practical side of, and we were talking about this earlier. A few months ago, you had all the team in an office working together, whereas now you've probably got your team dispersed out. Some of them are working from home some of the time, some of them working flexibly, some of them might still be on furlough because they've still got childcare. Your team is not all together in the way that it once was, and you've got to work as an MD or even marketing, HR, whatever. You've got to work really hard to make sure that team is still cohesive and to make sure you're still pulling people together, you're still having those conversations that make everybody feel part of the team and that keep morale up. Because you're absolutely right. How are you going to send people out there to sell the business if they don't feel confident or secure within it?
Yeah, I think as well it's about reinforcing the brand. So the culture of a business is so interlinked with the brand of the business. And when you've got everyone spread across the country and they're zooming, but are they falling out of the habits of the kind of brand mindset that they'd have in a perfectly kind of created office environment that was created for that brand per se, or for that culture? So I've always thought that the brand team or the marketing team should be working really hard with the HR team to formulate and create that kind of culture. So that's important.
Something that you've always done, actually, Dalley, isn't it? In your roles in the past, I've watched you in the way you've done this in previous businesses, companies that you've worked for, and you have focused as much on the brand, how the brand is perceived within the business as how the brand is perceived without, haven't you?
Yeah, it's essential because you've got to have buy-in. Right? If you can't convince your staff, if your employees don't buy into what you're creating, then they're not going to be able to communicate that effectively. And they are, your employees represent every touch point of your business, whether it's the way that they speak to people on the phone, the emails that they write and send out to people, the copy that they write for the website. It's all related back to that kind of the brand. And if there's a misalignment there, then that needs kind of addressing and negativity. When something's going wrong, and coming back to what you were saying about anxieties, but both of you were saying about anxieties within the kind of culture of business, that kind of flows out onto phone calls. That flows out onto copy that's being created. It happens, and that can dramatically affect a sales team ability to sell. What's wrong? Well, everyone's negged out. The culture's dead, and something needs seriously changing in order to get that back going. Could I, in terms of what we were saying about what small businesses should be doing now, and just thinking about, I think all of what you said, I completely agree. Direct response activity. It's important. PPC, paid social, and absolutely be advocating that. But I'd also be saying that now is not a time to roll back on some of that long-term strategic kind of activity. You've got to cut your cloth accordingly, but now is a time when everybody else is cutting back to invest in the future. So think about the buyer journeys. Think about how you can create content in the awareness phase, the consideration phase, decision phase, loyalty and advocacy. Move it along and do all that stuff while your competitors aren't, because that will give you an advantage when you come out of this. I saw this at the end of 2009, 2010. All those businesses that had been set up, all those businesses that were set up in the recession or concentrated the marketing efforts in the recession, at that time they were flying. They were ready to invest even more in marketing.
Yeah.
So I think now is the time to be bold and be brave and stick with it, because I think it will have future payoffs for most businesses. But it's very easy to say that. I mean, a lot of the advantages that the way that small businesses are able to take some of the market share, that comes off the back of the fact that larger businesses are too big to react. They have too, the juggernaut can't be turned. They have too many costs associated with them.
Yeah.
So they have to cut back.
Yeah.
Can I just ask a question on that? Because obviously, you one of your key areas is SEO. I kind of think I know the answer, because I had a conversation with a client about this a few weeks ago, and they were talking about cancelling their SEO contract. And I was suggesting, and it was only a gut feeling, that because competitors are likely to be cancelling SEO contracts and doing less SEO, would I be right in thinking that you probably get more bang for your buck, as the Yanks would say, for your SEO at the moment?
I'd say so. I think so.
Yeah.
We've been saying this, actually. I just want to quickly say we're almost coming up to time. So if anyone has a question that they would like to ask, please do put it in the comments and we'll answer it. But I've been saying this to people at networking meetings over the last few weeks. Obviously the amount of people that have gone online as users over the last 3 months has been phenomenal. People can't go down the high street. They can't walk into shops. They're not sat in offices asking their friends, where did you get such and such a thing from? Yeah. If you look at purely search volumes of people, and I was telling one of our clients, we were looking at the search volumes for the keyword power of attorney. 650 people searched on average for power of attorney in Lancashire in February. By June of this year, it was 60,500 people on average were searching for that keyword. Now, obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic, so keywords around death and power of attorney and wills are going to be more popular. But that is there's a consistent increase in search volumes that I'm seeing across. And when I'm auditing websites as well, you can see that especially in the older age brackets, there are more people from the 55 to 64s and the over 65s online now than there have ever been. So on one hand, you've got so many more people going online to look for products and services. On the other hand, you've got businesses pulling back on their SEO. They're not spending as much on the PPC. They're not putting the money into writing blogs, especially, blogs, and that organic SEO has been one of the first things that people come back on. They say, well, why write blogs, when we need to pay the rent, and you get it. But because of that, we've got this kind of dual storm, and I always feel like people are going to say, well, you're in SEO, so obviously you're going to say that, and I am. But now is such a great opportunity to get out there and get online and put some of your money into SEO and PPC and because that's where the audience is, that's where they are. And personally, I think that seal's broken and we're not going to go back. What do you think, Dalley?
I think there are winners and losers in all this, and we've seen this with our clients as well. There are some, absolutely, there's huge increases in search volume for some keywords, and I'm sure back the last recession, I did a load of work for debt management companies, and I suspect that will happen again in 6 months to a year time. Right now, we're probably seeing HR related keywords. We're seeing solicitors related keywords. It will change over time. People are doing DIY. There's kind of garden furniture keywords have gone mental. But then on the flip side, there are businesses where the keywords have just dropped off a cliff. The search volumes have dropped off a cliff.
Yeah.
So I think, but fundamentally, we all know that this is a short-term clip, and that there will be a rebalancing. I'm sure that some of those search terms will stay high. Some of the ones that have kind of dropped off will come back. I do think that we're going to see a change in the way that people work. We're going to see much more kind of working local. People will go into the office much less. They might go to smaller hub centres more regionally. I can see things like that happening, and it will change the way that we work. And people, I don't know whether some people do want to go back into the office. Let's be honest, but I think a lot of people want to stay and work from home and enjoy this experience, and the kind of practicalities that it has for your life, the way that you're able to engage your public and private life, if you like. That they must have seen the benefits of it, and I think we can't just jump back onto the bandwagon that we were on before.
Yeah, I agree completely. Well, time is marching on everywhere. This is a really interesting discussion. We could talk about this all afternoon, but the sun is shining, and I'm sure we all want to get outside. So there's one question that I always ask of everybody on these Friday Facebook Lives, and it is, it's have you found any resources that help? But essentially, if somebody came to you and said, I've got a small business, I want to start learning more about this stuff, where would you send them? Morgan, you've already given us an amazing book recommendation with the guerrilla marketing one. Is there anything else, webinars, websites, anything you found that you think would be really helpful to people at this time?
Yeah, certainly. So there's a few areas really. The first one is online networking. So if people aren't doing online networking, get online networking. There are some great organisations. I've been a member of BNI for 18 years, but there are some other great ones as well, of course.
But it's free at the moment. Most of them are, BNI is free if you want to go as a visitor. Yep. And as I said, Morgan and I are both in BNI groups. So leave us your details, we'll get in touch. But yeah, most of them are free, so definitely use them.
That's it. Yeah, Tracy Heatley runs a great networking organisation as well. You probably know Tracy.
We're members of Bob, both of us.
We're members of Bob. Yeah.
yeah. So firstly, online networking, get involved with that. Secondly, there's one particular website that I recommend people to go, and that's Google Garage. Now, Google Garage gives you free certification for various different things on Google that will help you understanding. It'll help you to understand SEO, AdWords, lots of different things. Now, I advise people to do that, not so they can go, oh, let's take the SEO in-house, because it's far too complex. But what I find is it helps you better communicate with your agency and understand what's actually happening. And together you can help form a strategy rather than purely relying on your agency, which for me is a great thing. So Google Garage is great. You've got Facebook University as well, which is fantastic. That's free. If you want to pay for the certificates, there is a charge, but there's no need to. So I'd say those places. We have a partnership with the Chartered Institute of Marketing locally. There's the M65 Marketing Academy. Have a look at the M65 Marketing Academy's website. There are some really good different courses that you can do in marketing. Andy Davis, who I've known, I did my CIM diploma with Andy. Andy Davis, absolutely fantastic guy, really, really top level marketing. He's the only deliver in the country that's doing the new level 7 program, so he's right at the cutting edge. So I'd advise doing that, and also general book reading as well. I love little books like Who Moved My Cheese, because that's that more than ever now is all about change and how we adapt to change. And there's others as well, like Simon Sinek did a great book about the reason why, why do we do things? And I think understanding why we do things from a personal development perspective, it's slightly away from marketing, but from a personal development perspective, is a really good way to understand and ground ourselves again. Because I, like many other people, have been through, the real roller coaster over the last few months. And I think just grounding yourself again and understanding why you're doing things, setting some goals, is really good.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree completely with that, because I think people, especially, you know, if you're a business owner yourself, if we're talking about our own businesses as opposed to our clients' businesses, you've got to, you know, in terms of marketing, you've got to set your goals and know where you're going. But it's exactly the same thing with the people. You've got to be able to understand why you behave in the certain ways you do in order to change it, and then you've got to be able to set goals to say, like, this is what we want to change and how we want to get there. So no, absolutely. And you know, as you say, there are some amazing resources around at the moment, and most of them,
I've lost it.
if they're not reduced, they're free over the last few months. So yeah, Moz as well had they had most of their courses for free, didn't they, Dalley? Are they still free? Or
No, I think they've come to an end.
Yeah, Dalley, what it was?
There are still lots of free courses out there that you can get involved with.
There are, yeah.
I did a really good SEO course. It was more like an extended slideshow, if you like, but a really good in-depth one by a guy called Craig Campbell, an SEO. He's one of the kind of the UK's leading SEO consultants, experts, and that was really good. But I think so something else that I've keep your eye out on Google AdWords, because I signed an NDA on this, so I can't really say too much. But they have some new features coming out on Google AdWords that are very interesting, especially if you like the functionality available on Facebook advertising. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
okay. Try to be careful about what I say there.
Google Ads are actually going to be offering a free service for local businesses as well, aren't they? Coming up, so that's something that they're going to be doing for local businesses. But there's one other thing actually that I didn't mean to mention, and you guys probably know about this as well. For the first time since I can remember, Google have given 6 months' notice for a major algorithm update which is coming.
Yes.
And the algorithm update is going to measure responsiveness, interactivity, mobile speed. So one thing that I'd advise every single company that's got a website that relies on it is get a review done. Once you've done your review, make sure you put a plan in place, because I would say the websites that we've come across, is probably about 70% of websites are going to literally really suffer on the back of it. But there's quite a few months to plan for it. So we, as part of our service, we're actually offering a free, completely free audit and a marketing review as well for any companies out there that haven't done it. There's no obligation. We simply do it. We'll leave you with some recommendations, and you can either implement them with your existing agency or pitch out work, whatever you wanted to do. But yeah, if anybody'd like to take us up on that, I'd be happy to do that. And Dalley, if you'd like to be involved in that, I can certainly, when it comes to SEO reviews and that type of thing, I'd be happy to recommend.
Yeah, it'd be great to have a chat about that. I think we've been saying the same thing to our clients. Like you say, we've been given 6 months warning, haven't we, that the page experience factors are going to come into rankings.
Yeah.
But I think that, they did a similar thing when they introduced SSLs as a kind of standard requirement. And they phased it in, so they, at one point you could measure, like it started at kind of 75% of the first page results.
Yeah.
Didn't have the SSL certificates, and over 2 years or a year or whatever it was, that everyone had an SSL certificate on the site.
We're running out of time, so I'm going to shut you both up now, I'm afraid. Absolutely, if you could both put, well, Dalley, obviously your contact details are on the page, but Morgan, when we finish this chat, if you could put your contact details on there, please, and link to your website, and then anyone can take you up on that offer, that would be great. We are coming up to time. I just want to quickly go around and ask each of you for your one top tip. If you were to give small to medium businesses one piece of advice at the moment, what would it be? Dalley, what would yours be?
Get out in the sun.
Right, okay. Morgan, what would yours be?
Mine would be pick up the phone to every single person that you've sent an invoice out to in the last 12 months, all your existing clients, ask them how they are, ask them how you can help them, and ask them, and take them some sun cream. So do it outside, because obviously we can't do it inside at the moment anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree completely. I think mine would just be, just don't stop. Just do not stand still. If you want a business that you can come back to after all of this chaos is over, you can't give up. Please, you know, just keep going. Even if all you're doing is the bare minimum to keep yourself going, just do that and never give up. That's my last piece of advice. Right, it is 2 o'clock. The sun is shining. We all want to go outside. I would just like to thank both of you. That's been a really interesting discussion, and I'm sure we could go on talking all afternoon, but we can't. So thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it.